I know that some of you have been looking at your Spotify Wrapped lists and your Apple replays, and you're kind of taking inventory about what happened in 2024 and looking forward to 2025. So we wanted to do that as well. And something that you may not know that happens here at New Life Community Church is we have a podcast called The 167. And the premise of that is that there are 168 hours in every week. And most people only spend one of them here, worshiping, connected with the Lord, connected with other believers. And then there's 167 other hours where actually here at this church ministry is happening, other things happen, but some people, they just leave it to that 1 hour. And so we're curious about how to help people in the 167. And so I wanted to share with you a few stats about our podcast because we broadcast it every week. You can find it on YouTube at the 167. You can also find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever Audible, wherever podcasts are. And so this year, we averaged 100 views per week on YouTube. We averaged 455 downloads in Gardner, 209 in KC, 73 in Overland Park, 56 in Olathe, and 56 in Cape Coral, Florida. Shout out Cape Coral, Florida, whoever's down there listening. It was also downloaded in 18 countries, including France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. So shout out if you're watching this worldwide. So today we thought it might be fun to tape an episode live of the 167. So you guys get to be a part of that. Yeah, that little whoop right there. If you go to YouTube this week, it will be on the internet. So if you just shout something random during the whole thing, I mean, you can go check yourself out on the internet. So usually myself and Pastor Rick host the 167, and then we invite a guest every week to talk with us about issues that are happening in culture. We talk about what's happening at our church. We review what's happening in the sermon series. And so today we're actually going to review what happens in the 167 here at the church, things that you may not be aware of that happen during the week, and also things that happen in the 313 days of the year that are not Sundays, okay? So we're going to be talking a little bit about what's happened in 2024, looking forward to what happened in 2025. So I'm going to need your help, feel free to respond, feel free to clap, feel free, if somebody says something funny, you can laugh or not. If it's not really that funny, if it's the dad joke where it's like, see you next year, it's that season, right? So I just want to encourage you to participate and to be here. You are our live studio audience on our first ever live episode of the 167. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
So welcome to the 167. I'm Pastor Lucas. I'm the discipleship pastor here at New Life Community Church. With me is senior pastor Rick George.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Yeah. Let's get this party started.
That's right. And I want you to help me welcome some of our guests. This is Pastor Nick Magana, who is our children's pastor at New Life.
Yeah.
Now, Pastor Jay Cuppy couldn't be here. He is just lazy and, took this Sunday off. But it's okay because we have with us youth volunteer extraordinaire, Jill Washington.
Yeah.
So this has been a crazy year, and so we just thought we would end it in a crazy way to tape a live episode of the 167. So if you are a 167 subscriber, maybe in the United Arab Emirates, we don't know. We had some crazy downloads this year, but if you don't know what's happening, we're actually here live at New Life Community Church on Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's good to know that we are a worldwide sensation.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
They call me Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, so,
true.
So all kinds of cool things happening here at New Life, most of which don't happen right here on Sunday morning. That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
So those are the things we want to talk to you about today. I want to start with a passage of scripture, though. It's something that I've been reading through, praying through, and I want to share with you. So grab your Bibles, turn to Philippians chapter 1. Philippians chapter 1 and verse number 6, and then we're going to jump over to verse 9. But Philippians 1:6 says, "And I am certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns." How many of you know that God has begun a good work in each one of you? Let me hear you. Yeah, so we believe here on staff, we believe that God in 2024, when we moved into this building, that God began a new work, a good work, something different for the city of Gardner. And he began it in 2024. 2025 is a year of expectation. Like we've worked out the bugs, we've kind of settled into a rhythm, and now we are looking forward passionately to 2025, which leads to the prayer that I've been praying for you and for me and for our church. It's in verse 9, okay? I echo this prayer. Read it with me. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in knowledge and understanding. For I want you to understand what really matters, so that you may live pure and blameless lives until the day of Christ's return. May you always be filled with the fruit of your salvation, the righteous character produced in your life by Jesus Christ, for this will bring much glory and praise to God. And so my prayer is that you will understand what really matters most, and that you will grow in your relationship with Christ in 2025, so that through your life you will bring much praise and glory to Jesus Christ. So who's ready to bring glory and praise to Jesus in 2025?
Amen. It has been a big year for us. I was talking with a few people that in my Facebook memories and the things that come up on your phone, that about this time last year, we were all having panic attacks because we were trying to get the building opened.
Yeah.
You know, we were having our first services here in the building, and it was crazy because I look back at that, it feels like that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was 1 year. Man,
It was just one year ago. And I know there are actually people that are in this audience today that you have never, we're going to talk about some of the things that happened in our old building, and you have never experienced that. God bless you.
Yes.
All right, so welcome to New Life Community Church. But as we were talking about that, like we were getting settled in the new building, I know that this has been a huge thing because one of the biggest reasons that we built a new building was, of course, in the last building that we had, we didn't have a ton of kid space. And honestly, the kid space that we had next door in Kids World was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little shady.
It was suboptimal.
It was suboptimal. That's a
Yeah,
great
we
way
would
to put it.
say things like, "Oh, we really value our children," and then they would go over to our children's area, and it's like, "Really?"
There were birds living in the
Yeah, there were
walls.
birds living in the walls and ceilings.
That is 100% true.
But you've had a great expansion we've had in early childhood, and then tell us a little bit about where we've kind of seen gains there.
Yeah, one of the biggest things we've seen since moving over here to the new building was just the way we've been able to expand our early childhood ministry. We went from having 3 classrooms up to 5 classrooms, which some of you go, oh, that's nice, it's 2 extra classrooms. But for us, it's huge. So that now means we can divide the kids down into more age-specific classrooms. We can give them more developmentally appropriate content for all the classes they're in, and we can service more families and more kids every single week, while without those classrooms being just packed and overwhelming. We were running a lot of Sundays over in the other building where we would have upwards to 30, 35 preschoolers in one classroom in a room that was built for 20. And that room is just chaos. And it had nothing to do with the content or the teachers or anything else. It's just, you can't put that many preschoolers together in a classroom that size and
Or
not
you
have
can.
chaos.
It's not well.
It just doesn't. Jen Whitlow will tell you it is impossible.
If you're the fire marshal, we totally didn't do that.
And so now it's one of the, now I just love it because I come in on Sunday morning, I walk down that hallway, and it's peace. As you walk down, yeah, there's still kids, so there's still chaos every now and then, but it's calm. The classrooms are, the kids aren't crunched. They're not feeling overwhelmed. It's just this amazing thing. It allowed us to expand and put on something that I've been dreaming about, of having a large group environment for our early childhood kids, so that our preschoolers and 3-year-olds can come out and learn what it means to worship in a corporate environment, and so that they can come out together and do their worship songs and hear their Bible story and learn the memory verse together, and then still go back to their classroom and have all the small group activities and have time to play and still be preschoolers and 3-year-olds. And it's allowed us also to do things like story time, which is something we've launched this monthly event for early childhood kiddos, where moms and child care providers and stuff can bring their kids in once a month, and we read books to the kids and share Bible stories and sing songs and play with toys and get to just meet them on just a real personal level once a month, where it's just something where you can get out and have that community feeling. So it's been great.
Well, I know that there were moments in the last building where I remember going down, and I think Jen Whitlow was actually working in, there was like 27 kids in the pre-K class, and one of the kids was just running around making dinosaur noises. And I was like, we have to do something about this. Like, but it's great. I know that with that increase, you've had to increase your team, what, 20%?
Yeah, we've grown our team by 20% in the last year, which has been amazing because it's really just been, it's a God thing. Yeah. Like we haven't gone around like begging people going, please, will you come work with kids? It's been people just coming going, I see what's going on. I want to be part of this. Yeah. And signing up and like amazing, our student volunteers. Shout out to all student volunteers. If we didn't have our student volunteers, children's ministry does not function. Yeah. You guys are amazing. You're the best and you rock.
That's cool. And I mean, there's been a lot of growth in there. I know, especially it's been great to have classroom space because you and I share a lot of classroom space. It's been great to, have classes not have baby toys in the room. So yes. It's been a great expansion. I know it was big on your heart that when we were coming into this building that we would be a bigger presence in the community. How have you kind of seen that play out now that we're actually in the building?
Yeah, so one of the things that, it's a biblical principle. When you're faithful in little, God will give you more. Right? And so we were faithful in that little building, which it seems little now, but we maximize that in our faithfulness. Then God has provided something bigger, but with that building, like with what we have, comes more responsibility. Right? So this is not just so we can have a bigger sanctuary. This was driven by two things. One, children's ministry, so we could put quality into our children's ministry, right? So it's if you've not been up in that space, talk to Pastor Nick and let him show you. It's a beautiful worship facility and kids space. So
there are no birds.
Yeah, and there's no birds. And so that's great. But the second thing was that this building is a bigger presence. Like it's more visible. You can see it from the highway. You can see it from Gardner Road. And so we have more responsibility because of the visibility. And so when we bought this property over 4 years ago, nothing was over here. We had Baumgars, which it wasn't Baumgars then, and we had Groundhouse Coffee, and there wasn't really anything else. And we purchased this property to build a church, and then God's like, hey, I'm going to bring even more people, more visibility. So we have Culver's. Shout out to Culver's. Anybody? Huh? We have Quick Trip. We have Taco Bell for all the Taco Bell people. All these new buildings. We have a car wash that's there. We have the new storage units that are being built right here by our parking lot. We have a Whataburger coming right on the corner up here. It's a Patrick Mahomes owned Whataburger, so that's good.
You should be there every day.
Maybe Pat will drop in and say hi once in a while. So that's cool. We have a building going right in front of us. It's a doctor's building. All these things that God knew what was going to happen when we purchased this. We didn't know, but God knew. And so not only do we have visibility, but we have responsibility, and we want to take that responsibility seriously, and we want to provide ministry here, not just on Sunday morning, but to our entire community every day of the week.
Yeah, and we've seen some of those dreams come true that we were dreaming about when we were pitching that through Game Changer and through Move. We've seen sports teams being able to utilize the gym. Obviously, we have NLCA, our New Life Christian Academy, that meets here every day of the week.
Yep. Yeah. Shout out to NLCA.
It's been fantastic. We get to walk the hallways and see the kids. They're always high-fiving us, going to lunch, so they get to use the facilities. It's been fantastic to kind of watch that. And we've seen growth here on Sunday morning because we were averaging, I think in the other building, about 900 per week over 3 services. And here we're seeing an average of 1,100. So
over 2 services, which we don't have to do 3 services now.
Yeah. So there's at least 200 of you that are brand new, have no idea what we're talking about in the old building. And so we want to welcome you guys. We're so happy that you're part of our family. But we've also seen 88 baptisms this year.
Yep, 88
Like, I know sometimes if you've been at New Life for a while, you're like, oh yeah, 88, that's about, I'm like, there are churches that don't see 88 baptisms ever.
Yeah.
And so you guys have, what that indicates to us is that you guys are inviting people that are far from Christ. They're at a point in their journey where they're saying yes to Christ, sometimes for the first time. Mm-hmm. And so that's really exciting to see. And then youth has witnessed kind of exponential growth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we first started at the beginning of last year, we had about 80 students at most of our services. Now we average about 100, which is huge because these kids are coming back every week. It's not just a one-time thing. We've also been able to host a lot of invite nights. We did Battle of the Schools, and I heard about one of our middle school boys at Trail Ridge was nervous to come. He didn't have anybody to come with, and so he decided to invite his whole football team. So so over half of the Trail Ridge 7th grade football team came to one of our invite nights. And out of those 88 baptisms, we had 20 youth get baptized this year.
Yeah.
Which I think you were in 19 of them. Yes.
I had 11 of them.
11.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. I love it when you get to see that where the youth small group leaders get to be in there with
Yeah.
their kids. You know, they trust you, and just to see the culmination of the kind of the work that gets done there.
Yeah, it's really special.
So one of your biggest nights I think was Fall Fest, and you had like 170-ish.
Yeah, so we had Fall Fest this year. We took our service outside. We did bonfires, s'mores, hot chocolate, and did worship outside. We had students sharing their testimonies, and it was really cool. We had 170 students show up for that, and it was cold.
That's huge.
Yeah.
170 kids.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Well, and I think that night Pastor Jake was telling me, he said he offered an altar call, and 18 students had given their life to Christ.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So that's huge. And
Good
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the story sharing, because I know even at my own home, both my daughters have come to me and they have remarked or commented on the fact that you guys have so many students sharing their testimonies that they're like, how do I share my testimony? Do I have a story to tell? Like,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about what's happening with that.
So we have really focused on the power of your testimony and how it can change the trajectory of other people's lives with Christ. And so we have had students, I think for the last 4 months, we've had a student sharing their testimony every Wednesday night. And it's been extremely impactful because kids can see that they're not the only ones going through whatever their struggle is, but also that whether it's a kid that grew up in the church that didn't necessarily know God, now they're finding him, or a kid who has gone through a struggle, that they're not alone and other people have experienced those same things.
That's so cool. It's such an incredible thing when people share their story. I know that some of you here have shared your story on the 167. Some of you have shared it at Freedom. Some of you have shared it here on Sunday mornings. We just had a series where we were sharing testimonies. I just think that people's stories are so powerful, and especially student stories. I know you mentioned the one kid just was like, I don't have any friends. I'm going to bring my whole football team.
Yeah.
That there's also a movement happening in the cross-country team, and I think at FCA at the high school as well, right?
Yeah, so we actually have a young man that's on our cross-country team who has really just been growing his relationship with God this year and digging into the Word and digging into a small group. And he has been discipling the cross-country team, and I believe we have 5 or 6 of the boys from our cross-country team who now come every single week to youth.
Good job.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I also kind of get a cool perspective because I work at the high school, and so I have a lot of students come and share what's going on and how they're talking to students. But we have kids on multiple different teams who now are praying before their wrestling matches or before football games and things like that. So it's really cool to witness how God's moving in this generation of kids.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, with that growth, of course, comes a challenge.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about, you know, if you were like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's so cool that you get to talk to youth and make a difference in their life. You too can be a youth volunteer, yes?
You can.
Where do you guys kind of need help in youth?
We honestly need help in all areas. So you can come work security, you can help with check-in, you can be a small group leader. That's more where you get the discipleship side of it and get to build closer connections with students. But you can come hang out and play 9 Square. You know, there's all different possibilities. All the things that you see happen here on Sundays, we do the same things on Wednesday nights, and we need volunteers to be able to do that.
Well, and I think that we're seeing that across the board. I mean, with our growth as a church, like I said, we've had 200 on Sunday morning on average. We need more people to do greeters, ushers, servers. I know for us in our First Impressions team, we actually need a lot of more security guards. So if you're a big, tough guy and you're kind of a grumpy old man, but you're super nice. No, but, you know, like the people there are like, I'm passionate about youth, but it scares me to talk to teenagers. Be like, no, you can just be the guy that's like, stay out of there. You know, like you wear a vest, you go, stay in the building. Like it takes a lot to corral 170.
It does. They
It
need
does.
supervision.
They do. They need a lot of corralling.
And we need that as well. Like I said, we need it, especially during second service. We need some more security, more parking lot. And I'm telling you, we had so many services for Christmas Eve. I had to work parking lot third service. And I'm telling you, y'all are rude. I was like, hey, how's it going? Could you park right over there? And they're like, I'm parking wherever I want. See ya. And they just took off. And I was like, Come on, man. So help our parking lot guys. You know, like, and if you maybe you need some perspective in your life, you should join the parking team, second service.
Yeah, and it is important to step up and lead and to serve on Wednesday nights, on Sunday mornings, anytime there's something happening here. And just as a point of reference, I know that there are churches locally and across the United States that are not having services today, the last Sunday of the year, simply because they could not get enough of their the leaders to step up and to serve on this Sunday. So they just decided to do online services because they didn't have that. We have that here, but we could use more. So can we just give a big shout out to everyone who served today here at New Life? So thank you so much.
Well, and I just think that is so important for especially like the youth, and of course transit. We have our transit program that is 5th and 6th graders. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys to say something to the parents in a second. But I just also want to reiterate to parents, because maybe you hear this from Jake or you hear it from the youth. I want to tell it for you just from a discipleship perspective, is it's okay to force your kids to go to youth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There are teens that are here this morning that do not come on Wednesday night.
Yep.
They don't get that. They don't go to camp in the summer where we see a lot of growth. So I always tell people this. I'm like, if you think of it like, you know, because I think that teens sometimes just get hit with Jesus like a bus, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like they're not looking for Jesus, and all of a sudden he just comes across and hits them. Like some of that's my story. It's some of your guys' story. And I always tell people, I cannot make my children have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but I can make them play in the street. Right? Like if we're going to get hit by the Jesus bus, like I can make them play in the street. I can't make them get hit by the bus. They can try and dodge it. But if you have teens and you're like, man, I wish that Jesus Christ would get a hold of them, they need to be where the places where they're going to encounter that. They need to be at camp. They need to be at spring retreat. They need to be here at youth because, you know, like I said, you can force your kids to go to school and everything else, but we force our kids to go.
Yeah. Well, plus more is caught than taught. So kids are going to come sit in a service, and if they see people worshiping, that's going to become more familiar to them. If they see people talking about God, that's going to be more familiar to them. So the more they're surrounded by that, the more it's going to be a norm. But if they don't ever show up to church, then they're never going to experience that.
That's right.
Yeah. And you guys, you said that you can use volunteers on Wednesday nights, but also spring retreats coming up.
Yeah, so we have spring retreat coming up in March. If you have not registered your teenager, please do. I believe our early bird special ends in a few days, so get that discount. But I will say the best time where kids experience God is when they get to go away from home. And specifically on this retreat, we take their cell phones except for like an hour a day. So they really unplug and get to experience the Holy Spirit and spend time with other kids who are like-minded. But with that being said, we do need volunteers. We need people to come help set up the activities so that our small group leaders aren't having to run away from our students to set up. We also need people to help in the kitchen. So if you have a heart to cook or to serve food, that is definitely not my ministry. But if that is yours, we need your help. So sign up, talk to Pastor Jake if that's something you're willing to help with.
Yeah. So one of the things that always happens when we have staff meeting is that our youth pastor, Jake Huppy, he comes with scary statistics about Gen Z, where he's like, how's your ministry going? And he's like, and he just like puts us all into a state of depression.
Yeah.
So when I asked him for material this morning, he sent me these statistics. So stay with me here. But he said, for 4% of Gen Z has a biblical worldview. Only 4%. Only 15% of Christian parents say that passing their faith on to children is their most important parenting goal. And as a whole, it's astonishing to see that while the belief in God is decreasing, depression, suicide, overdose, and prescription drug use is skyrocketing, especially in Gen Z. Perhaps there's a correlation.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading that, I was like, that is super depressing for our teens and our youth team. But one of the things that I ended up looking up was that Gen Z is not just teenagers, it's 12 to 27. And so this is about our adult ministries. Mm-hmm. Like Gen Z you guys aren't just the church of the future, you are the church currently. And so it affects us in adult ministry. It also affects transit and even further down into Alpha, right?
Yeah, it's definitely bleeding all the way down through, and we're seeing it. I was having a conversation even with just my son's pediatrician, who's not a believer, and we were just talking about some different things. And he was talking about the amount of anxiety that he is seeing in children as young as 4 years old, that it is just skyrocketing through the roof in our children. And that he has more kids going on anti-anxiety medications and stuff now than ever before. And he goes, because it's the anxiety level of our culture, that Gen Z, 12, 27-year-olds, that mom and dads, that they are so anxious that now it is literally just bleeding into our children, that they are absorbing the anxiety and the culture around them, and that they don't have the coping skills to handle it. So therefore, when we sit here and we go, well, why do we see more behaviors out of kids? Why are we seeing more neurodivergent type behaviors? Why are we seeing all these things happening in children? Well, I think a lot of it's because as our culture becomes where we are, like literally, if you talk to researchers, we're probably 5 to 10 years away from America being a post-Christian culture. That we're going to be joining Europe and Asia and all those others and being a post-Christian culture. And as we do that, as we move further away from God, guess what? Bad things happen. And so we can do all kinds of research on stuff about why things are happening with kids. But a lot of it has to do with, it comes back to, we're becoming post-Christian and there's just all this junk bleeding in, which really then comes over going to my ministry, is what we're seeing more and more of is we have more kids who have exceptionalities or neurodivergent, however we want to classify it, that are coming into the children's ministry. They're coming into the early childhood ministry down in our 3-year-old and preschool classrooms. And they're coming in and their families are showing up to church. And one of the things, unfortunately, that we're seeing is that we're sitting here trying to bring them in and we're being accommodating to them. But there's families that are staying away from church because of this. So as we need more church, they're pulling away because the experience they're having is, we had a family that came in and they had a young man, a son. He had like every alphabet diagnosis you could think of under there. And he was a challenge. Like he was a challenge, but he was also a super sweet boy. And he would come in and we told his mom, like, bring him in. We'll do our best. We'll work with him. We'll see what we can do. We'll give him a buddy. And she was real leery about it because at their former church, she was told he couldn't come back into their children's ministry and he wasn't welcome at the church until he got better.
Yeah.
And to a mom and a parent of a child like that, that is heartbreaking, and it drove them out of the church. And I heard that and I listened to it, and it just made me think back to, in the Bible, there's a story that is written in Matthew and Mark and Luke, and I find that if it is written by 3 people in the Bible 3 times, we probably should pay attention to it. And the story is Jesus and the parents trying to bring the little children to him, and the apostles shooing them away because Jesus is too busy for this. And I was like, well, I was wondering, why are they shooing them away? And like researchers, and you read about it, they say it's probably because the people were probably homeless and they were unclean, and therefore they would defile Jesus the rabbi if the child came to them and touched Jesus, and he touched them and blessed them. So stay away, you who are the least, the marginalized, because we don't have space for you. But Jesus' response was to rebuke the disciples and say, bring those children over to me, because these are who the kingdom of God belong to. It's people who receive the kingdom like this. And so one of the things we're dealing with is, as we see more of this, is how do we bring in and reach the least? So it's our heart. I don't care where the child is at, what their behaviors are, and what it is. We want to find space for that child inside of our church. We want to find space for that family. So that means we need to allow a child to walk around the back of the room all the way during Kids World, the entire service, so that they don't have to sit in a chair. Then so be it. Because you know what we found? I can go talk to those kids and they still tell me the memory verse and they still tell me the Bible story. They just have a hard time sitting in a chair. And so I'm not going to say, because you can't sit in a chair, you can't see Jesus.
Well,
and that you can't be part of us.
And I know that you were talking to me earlier about one of the big growth areas for us in 2025 is to be able to have volunteers that are basically paras or buddies, where you're just that person that's making sure that as that kid walks around, they don't walk out the door.
Yeah, that's really, that's the biggest thing we need is we need people who have a heart just help us serve these kids so that we can have a one-on-one with them, so that when, if they're in a room, like upstairs, we'll have 70 kids in there and they get loud and we get them yelling and screaming and having fun. Well, for some kids, that is totally overwhelming, and they need to be able to go out in the hallway and take a walk. And they need a friend who can just take them by the hand and say, hey, bud, let's put some headphones on and go out of here and walk out for a second. And, so we can show the love of Jesus to those kids. And my thought is, if we can bring those kids, one of those kids, into the kingdom of heaven and into God and introduce them to Jesus, then we've done our job.
That's right.
That is where we're at. God said
Yep.
that whenever
Good.
you welcome the least of these, you welcome me also.
Well, it's going to be an incredible growth area for us in 2025. And, I was just thinking about, speaking of thinking differently, here's our worship pastor, our creative arts director, Andrew Lewis.
Come on.
Welcome, Andrew Lewis. So we've been talking a little bit about this multi-generational ministry. We've been talking about Gen Z. We've been talking about how we need to kind of bridge those gaps. Now, you've actually seen multi-generational growth as well in your ministry.
Yeah,
Tell me a little
it's
bit
been
about
awesome. We've got a lot of new faces this year, but it's really fun to see in our ministry. I'm sure it's that way in any ministry, but we love to see the faith journey that people go on and coming alongside them and being a part of that and seeing those victories, big and small, with an individual, and then the really great things to see it infiltrate the whole family. And we've got a family within our creative arts ministry that leads worship all together. You've seen Alex on the drums and Lauren and Mia on the vocals. They're doing a great job. They're growing in Jesus as a family, and they're growing in their gifts in worship leading. And we've had a couple times this year where all three of them have been up here together, and it was just such an awesome. So that's an awesome thing to see. Families worshiping together. We've got our own worship band, family Von Trapp singers, right? Anybody know about that? But we've got a lot of new faces for the year. Something like a 20-person net increase. But the important thing is not that number, because the number's great because we need it. We have roles, various tech roles, and back here in this room, back here, that you don't see all these things that need to happen. You see the people here that help us lead worship from this platform. And it's great that we get those numbers to fill those spots, but really the important thing is the 20 hearts that come behind those new faces. And we've got a team absolutely full of beautiful hearts of worship. And I know you can see that when we get together. But I'm so thankful that our team already is strong, and that the new faces we have seen that God has given us has really added to our team. But not just in talent, because they do have talent, not just in excitement, not just in availability, but their heart for worship. That's the important thing. We want to cultivate that. We want to come alongside them so that we see more instances where we see that spiritual growth rocket and maybe even infiltrate their whole house. That's what we want to see. We want to see it spread throughout our whole church.
Yeah, and not only do they have an incredible heart of worship, and I get to see it, when they're coming in all the way from the auditions and then rehearsals and the actual leading in worship. Their heart is incredible, but man, God has blessed us, would you agree, with some talented people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Man, it's just, and I'm just blown away. You hear a vocalist and you're like, man, I can't wait till they sing again, because that's incredible. And then the next week there's somebody else that's like, man, they're great too, and they're great.
Yeah.
And the vocalist and the musicians as well. Right? So we need more musicians as well, right?
Yeah,
we need guitar players and drummers.
We're never turning down, somebody that's got the heart for that, that's got some skill. We can help you along in that musical process and the spiritual process. We want to. So you don't feel like you have to be at a certain level necessarily to come with us. We got to be at a level where we can do it, but we can help people along, and we enjoy doing that too. We also would love to see. We have a lot of amazing female vocalists, and we want to keep it that way, but we would love to see some more guys come help us sing, right? So I told the first service, they've been good at this, I'm sure some of you, but we're just going to make this a thing. We're going to snitch. We're going to be snitchers. If you're out here singing and you hear somebody singing behind you, however you have to do it, don't be creepy, but
Snitches get stitches.
Get their
Take a picture with your
information.
phone.
and snitch on them. And it's worked a few times. Some of the people that you love to see up here, not only have they been discovered by a eavesdropping congregation member that heard them
Yes.
singing beautifully.
So that is not true here at New Life.
Right.
So
Snitches.
Do you need any
snitches
bass singers?
don't get stitches.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
No,
So
I'm not going to give you stitches. But
one of the things I
Yeah.
appreciate about Andrew, by the way, and I'll just shout, man, he's an incredible teacher. So if you're like, man, I know how to play keys, I know how to play the guitar, but I'm kind of a little rusty. He is an incredible instructor, and he can take you from whatever level you are, and he can elevate that level. I've watched him; he's incredible.
Amen.
So, man,
We're
don't
blessed.
hold back.
Yeah, and yeah, we have an incredible recruiting pool, and we've seen people join the team through auditions. We've also seen that multi-generational thing that we've been talking about with, some of these young people. That we had a moment just a few weeks ago where we had two ladies leading worship. They were what, 12, 13?
that
was
even younger,
incredible.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did this year is we actually hired one of our newer staff members, Sydney Quinn.
Yeah.
And she does our youth and transit worship, and she does an incredible job here, kind of training up that next generation leader. That you've seen actually today, some of the people on the worship team came up through the youth band.
Yeah.
So we've seen a bunch of that. If you like to press buttons, we also need your help on tech. I wish that we could show you a picture of the Bat Cave. Tom's back there in the Bat Cave, which is literally this is a room with all the monitors that he actually is calling the shots about which camera to switch to where. And so if you like to do something, if you want to sit in the Bat Cave, we would love your help doing that.
Yeah.
So if you just like tech.
Absolutely.
But one of the big things I know that you're looking at for 2025 is continue to evolve worship here, looking at like what we do with First Fridays and things like that. What are some of your goals in 2025?
Yeah, so I mean, we just love to worship with you. We love it. We love not just only doing it at this time on Sunday mornings. If there's another opportunity that's not on a Sunday morning, an additional opportunity, we love that. We want to do that. So we've done First Friday. We're looking at maybe keeping that, maybe tweaking that, maybe adding something, maybe massively adjusting First Friday. Just what does it look like? We're trying to really give that to the Lord and say, just what's the best thing? Does something need to be shaken up? Does that need to happen on a different day, a different frequency, we want it to be more accessible so that we have more of us together, because we really love to worship together. So we're looking into that, but we're really giving that to the Lord, discussing it, praying through it, stuff like that.
Well, worship is one of our 5 core values here. Another one of them, of course, is what I'm passionate about, is discipleship, which is that growing people change. And we have experienced a lot of growth this year actually through groups. So we have 31 active life groups. Yeah. So that's incredible. I love our life group leaders. Shout out to them. We had 3 groups multiply this year, which means that one group became 2 groups. Not my parents' group, mind you, because they're fighting me on this. My own parents, betrayal. No.
They're the rebels.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like, they were like, we found our people. And I'm like, yes, other people need to find you as well. And so our life groups, they're so good that it's so hard to get them to multiply. But those are doing it. And so that you guys have groups that you can join in homes. Rooted, which is our program with women's Bible study. Yeah, they're keeping women rooted in the Word, rooted in community. They went from a group of 40 women meeting in the lobby of the old building, and now that we have space here, it is a group of 120 women over 2 different nights. Yeah, they expanded, so there's like 64 of them one night, 64 of them in the morning, and they have just grown exponentially. They've doubled or tripled. And then they actually provide childcare on Wednesdays. So if you are actually looking for a place to help midweek during the 167, if you're a teen maybe that's homeschooled, or an adult that's like, yeah, I can help out on a Wednesday morning, we need help with childcare. We also need help with childcare at our Freedom program, which is Tuesday nights. So again, if you're looking for a part-time job, we have some opportunities with childcare at Freedom. Freedom is our ministry where we just see people get free of anything from physical health problems to unforgiveness to addiction. We've seen incredible things happen in that ministry, but we're also looking for childcare. Yeah. Our Freedom ministry, we do things called prayer sessions, which is basically a time where we block out like 2 to 3 hours to sit down and pray with you. It's like whatever you want. Let's just bring it on, right? And we see an average of 6 of those per week. So you guys don't know what's happening, but here on Fridays and Sunday afternoons, there are people here praying for hours and hours with people, just finding out what does the Lord have for you. So we've seen people this year healed, get freedom from addictions. We had 2 people get free of addiction from methamphetamines, walk through divorce and forgive their spouses and see reconciliation. We've seen just incredible things happen. And one of the partners that we had was, we actually had a woman come speak to our church. She's from a ministry called the 199, which is a ministry that pulls women out of being trafficked. And she came to our freedom thing where it's like, yeah, we're looking for things to help people, because a lot of these women, they come with addictions, they come with obviously unforgiveness about what's happened to them, what was done to them. And so she loved it, and so now she's bringing women from the house that are staying with her to freedom. They're experiencing freedom. It's fantastic to watch. So, it's very intense. It's great. So we're going to do a series this year on Galatians. We're just going to walk through the book of Galatians, which is so great because at Freedom, Galatians 5:1 is, it was for freedom that you were set free. And so if you're thinking about joining Freedom, that's going to be happening January 7th, but it's really that idea of, if you have something that's holding you back, whether it's unforgiveness, it's just anything in your life, it's something that you can come to and say, listen, Christ didn't set you free so that you can continue to walk in bondage. You need to get free of that. So we've seen incredible growth in our Bible studies, in our life groups, and even in these specialized life groups like FPU that's coming up. So Pastor Kevin is going to be teaching FPU, which is Financial Peace University, because something that we're passionate about in 2025 is financial freedom for our congregation.
Absolutely, yes. I get the awesome privilege of facilitating our missions team and our deacons. So let's give it up for our deacons and our missions team.
Thank you, deacons.
Our deacons, if you don't know, we have a group of 25 outstanding deacons who do the physical things around the church for us, and a group of them that does financial assistance to folks in our community. So some of the physical things are, they mow the grass. We have a team that's just grass mowers. They get on the zero turn and get out there and cut grass. They run their weed eaters. When we get snow, they shovel the sidewalks. But there's a group of them that meet with folks for financial assistance. And so this year we have assisted about 50 people in our community with rent or mortgages or utility bills. And we don't want to be a Band-Aid for these folks, so we also offer to work with them on budgeting to set them up for success going forward. We have a young lady who came in November for financial assistance, and so she came for financial assistance, but in talking to her, she is also she's meeting with our deacon team once a month to keep working through her budget. She's coming to FPU in January. So we're seeing life change in our community. And then our missions team, just to kind of give you a recap of what happened in 2024. So in July, we had our backpack drive. We supplied 300 backpacks to children in the Gardner School District in our Title I schools, along with numerous tubs of just school supplies.
That was wild. Because it's like, not only did you hit 300 backpacks, but it's like also these tubs.
Yeah, each school gives us a list of things. The Title I schools give a list of things that they want. And number one on everyone's list is dry erase markers. I mean, so we bombarded them with truckloads of dry erase markers. What's that?
Did they smell good? That
We don't do the smelly ones.
Come on.
No.
Sorry, guys.
Maybe next year we'll get the fruity smelling ones or something. And then more recently, through the holidays, we served 340 fully stocked meals for Thanksgiving meals, complete with turkey and dressing and mashed potatoes and gravy. Yes. So if you like to cook, we can give you a ministry that you can help cook.
They said they did, again, it's always above and beyond. It's like the 340 Thanksgiving meals, and then they said they froze 30 meals for homeless people.
Yes, so the leftovers, we had leftovers from the Thanksgiving meals, and they took those and froze those meals for the homeless down in Casey Mo. So one of our missions team board members, she goes down once a month on a Tuesday and takes frozen meals to the homeless. So that was incredible.
And I know every year we have this debate because we do the Christmas angels. People
Yep.
love, did you guys take Christmas angels this year? Yeah, we have the Christmas angel tree, which is foster kids and gardener kids. And every year we're like, I don't know, if we increase the number of angels
Yeah.
on that tree.
Can we do more? Can we do more? Well,
Yeah.
this year we did the most we've ever done. We did 164 Christmas angels. 139 of those were directly into the Gardner School District. 25 of them were for the KVC foster care folks in Olathe. So again, that is just a testament to our church family and their generous hearts, and we appreciate that very much.
Yeah, give yourself a hand, man. That's awesome.
And then to kind of round it out, we did 100 baskets of love to folks in the community, widows and single moms and folks that are like at Bethel Estates, and so 100 baskets of love. And if you don't know what a basket of love is, it's basically a apple box full of all the fixings for a Christmas meal, and then some paper products to go along with that. So like paper towels and toilet paper and stuff like that. So
Well, and that's all things that happen through your guys' generosity here.
absolutely.
We've talked about this before as a church that we actually tithe on whatever comes in. So whatever you guys bring in, we take 10% of that and do a lot of this missions work. Obviously, you guys also donate on top of that. But that really helps us when we have like those people where they come in and they say, man, we can't pay our rent this month. We don't know what we're going to do. And we get to meet that immediate need, but then we get to say, hey, we want you to come in, get a budget, take
Right.
financial peace, because what's going to happen next month or the month after that? And we want
Exactly.
to provide financial freedom for people where they're not having anxiety about that, and they're freed up to focus on what God wants to do with their life.
That's exactly. You couldn't have said it better myself.
So we're going to end this segment in just a second, but I want to ask you guys each, we're going to start over here with Pastor Andrew, we'll just go this way. What are you most excited about in 2025 to see, or what challenge are you most excited about meeting in that?
Sure, maybe it's a little both. You guys remember when we had our Heart of Worship sermon series in September? You remember that? Man, that was awesome. I feel like, and maybe you agree, I heard from so many of you about that series, and it felt like we found something together. We found something powerful. I felt like we hit on a better heart approach from each of us and how we approach when we get together and worship. And what I'm looking forward to is continuing in that as we grow. I want to see us, and I'm believing for, as we sing, I'm praying and I want to help facilitate this as the worship pastor, but how do we prepare our hearts during the week? There's a song, Lucas likes this song, there's a song that says that hell is not scared of a Sunday faith if it only leads to empty praise. What really makes darkness run is when the saints arise and praise on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's what we want to see. And how are we preparing our hearts throughout the week? How are we worshiping in song? But it's not just singing, it's worshiping is obedience and sacrifice. So I'm looking forward to us hitting on that more and more together in 2025.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
and also, you're talking about the heart of worship. It's service. Service is the heart of worship. You're never more the hands and feet of Jesus than when you're serving somebody else.
Yeah. So the thing I'm really excited about is growth for 2025. Not just numeric growth, though I do anticipate numeric growth. In fact, I challenged our staff a couple of months ago, and I said for 2025, I'm praying and expecting 25% growth. 25% is huge. Most churches that are growing at a pretty good clip are growing at about 5 to 10%. And I believe that God's going to do some incredible things. 25%, which would mean our average Sunday attendance would be about 1,350 or 60 or something
You're growing
like that.
by 250 people, which a lot of times is a church.
Yeah, and so you play a part of that. Right? So when we say we're growing, it's because of you. So I'm excited about growth, spiritual growth and numeric growth, that we aren't the same people a year from now as we are today, that we've grown, we've met new people, and we've become new people. Right? So we're not stagnant. Another word is impact. I believe that God is going to use our church and use you specifically to impact the people that you interact with, that we as a church are going to impact our community in a very significant way. And the third thing is the word evangelism. That's going to happen when we get the heart of an evangelist, when we go out and just share our faith. And we become like the teenagers that Jill was talking about, those young men and women who are going into their schools talking about their faith. We need to be going into our neighborhoods and into our workplaces and sharing our faith and inviting people on a journey with us. And I'm looking forward to that in 2025, of us getting serious about our relationship with Christ, so much so that it transforms our lives and we make an impact. God, here's what that verse said, I'm certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue that work until it is finished. And it's not finished. Right?
Amen.
Right.
And God's going to continue working in your life and in mine, and I'm looking forward to that.
That's so cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always humbled by that. It's like, there's a teenager that went and evangelized this whole cross-country team, and I'm like, I don't have a cross-country team, but who do I need to be talking? I have neighbors, maybe you're in a pickleball league or a golf league.
The people you work with.
The people
we
you work with.
We need Jesus.
Like, you should be able to bring somebody to church and evangelize if a teen can do that with his whole team. So one of the things I'm also looking forward to is, I keep touching on a little bit, is this next generation piece. I think we have so many things that we need to grow in. Obviously, if we're growing numerically, we need more parking, and we need to close the gap on giving. Right now, we're not hitting our goals for giving, although you guys have increased since we did our financial series, which I think is fantastic. But more people means that we have more needs. And higher inflation means we have more needs in the community that have to be met. And so I'm looking forward for us to grow and kind of close those gaps. But I think one of the big pieces of that is this multi-generational thing that's happening. I love it when I go to Ground House in the morning, I'll have a coffee meeting with somebody, and I'm seeing an elder in our church meet with somebody who's 22. And because this is the thing, people are like, oh, Gen Z. Gen Z is the church now. Yeah. They're 27. Some of you are in this service right now. And you're going, yeah, someday I'll start to volunteer, and someday, you are the church.
That's right. And
it is our responsibility, if you are older in your faith, or maybe just older, right? Some of us are just older, but some of us are mature in our faith. And sometimes people go, well, I'm mature in my faith, so I don't need this. I'm like, no, you should absolutely be going to the younger generation. You should absolutely be going to people who are less mature in the faith and saying, hey, let's go to coffee. Let me teach you how to read your Bible. Let me teach you about tithing. I think that's how we're going to close these gaps, is when we stop viewing the next generation as replacements and start viewing them as reinforcements. We need the reinforcements now. And you guys, the younger generation, are the reinforcements now. I want to see you guys volunteer and see you guys give and be the church. And so that's what I think I'm the most excited in 2025, and how I see us closing some of those gaps, is that some of you who are sitting on the sidelines because you think that you're young, you're not. You're not too young.
You're young, but you're not.
Yeah, it's going to sneak up on you fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what I'm looking forward to in 2025 is expanding FPU. You've heard it talked about in our announcements. You've heard it here on the stage today. So Financial Peace University is a biblically based view of finances. And so we're going to have the class in January, but I want to have it multiple times throughout the year. I want to be able to open it up to the community, so we're not only giving financial freedom to our church family, but to folks in the community that don't necessarily go to church or even come to New Life. So I'm looking forward to expanding that on a grander scale.
That's great. So we're going to wrap up this episode. Thank you for joining us live here at NLCC. We're going to be resuming our regularly scheduled programming next Sunday. We'll go back and do a sermon series. If you're joining us online and you're our 167 listener, we want to invite you into church, of course. But we also want to invite everybody to like and subscribe on YouTube. Find us on Spotify, Apple, subscribe to the podcast so that we can kind of help you midweek. We want to encourage you guys to be part of the kingdom during the 167 hours that you are not here on Sunday morning. Come and serve, be a part of youth, make a difference. We hope that you guys have a great 2025, and we will see you next week. Have a great
God bless you. Thanks for being here.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.